The following is a transcript of a conversation between Matías De Stefano, referred to as me, and his higher self, referred to as I am. 24th June 2021, Mutations. Me. The perfection of the mechanisms of creation, such as DNA, inevitably has its counterpart, as you told me yesterday, mutations. I am. This is one of the most important qualities of Gemini on a physical level, because mutability, adaptation to the environment, are crucial for this aspect of our being. Me. So, aren't mutations bad? I am. Like everything, always, it depends. It depends on the circumstances, the reasons, the capacities, the being, the environment. Mutation is the action of changing. Transform from one thing to another. You can understand, then, that a mutation is something that has affected you a lot in life. Whether you like it or not, you are a mutant. Me. The word mutant resonates a lot in the movies. In some films, the mutant is portrayed as a deformed monster, and in others as the superhero, a fascinating person. Clearly, I am fascinated by the X-Men saga, where mutations are key, and cross a discourse also somewhat political and sociological, the acceptance of the different. I am. This is one of the cornerstones of mutant discussion. Acceptance of change. If you look closely, the visions of mutants as evil and deformed monsters is born in times of conservative thoughts, in which social stability was sought through the equivalent, and everything that was different was wrong, or could represent a threat. Mutants began to be the good guys when the audiovisual medium was taken over by more progressive thoughts, where being different was fine. In fact, the words freak and monster to define the weird and monstrous went from being insults to being proper qualifiers. Me, encompassing everyone who was different. But what was it to be different? I am. Basically not being of the same religion, same race or ethnicity, and the same social group. Me. I mean Christian, white, and middle class. I am. No, that's another stigmatization. Racism does not exist only among whites, but in all races or ethnicities. Racism is not unidirectional or typical of an ethnic group, but is typical of people with a lack of knowledge, something that crosses all social strata, religions, and ethnicities. Labeling racism in just one ethnicity makes us racists. Qualifying machismo in an entire genre makes us sexist. If you look, both currents make a serious mistake. Me. Which one? I am. Conservatives separate people by their differences, and progressives evaluate people by their differences. Both do the same thing, highlighting differences as the only determinants of who we are, when, in essence, we are all human. Me. Instead of strengthening the human condition of freedom, it focuses on different conditions such as positioning and evaluation. I am. And this is understandable. Thousands of years of oppression, in some things more than in others, many traumas lived between ethnicities, philosophies, diverse feelings, and all this has inevitably led to the need to fight for equality, but with the focus of valuing differences. It's like saying, let's fight for peace. A meaningless phrase, perhaps a kind of oxymoron that translates into the phrase, differences for equality. The conflict happens when, valuing differences, we continue to divide ourselves into increasingly specific groups, as if dividing human qualities according to their attributes, a kind of castes. Me. Yes, I notice this a lot. For example, in the fight for gender equality, the same people who talk about being all equal and that there are no flags, let's be one, are the ones who create flags for each sexuality, emblems that recognize some, separating them from others. That is why, even though I am 100% in favor of freedom in all its forms, I refuse to publicly support ideologies that further separate us by claiming to be for equality. I am. Differences are what make us human, what make us living beings, and the great importance is to accept them as they are without major conflict, naturalize the different qualities. The conservative fear of social mutations that imply constant changes has generated a wave of incessant transformations. As in the X-Men school, they all have different powers, but they are all mutants equally. And that's what you are, a mutant. And every difference you see in every human being is in turn a mutation. And as you can see, mutations, in essence, are not negative, but evolutionary. Accepting differences is crucial for development. Me. So we must say that more than fighting for equality, we must collaborate for the acceptance of differences, since they make us nutritious but do not define who we are. I am. Spots don't define the cat. The cat is a cat, and its spots are attributes, but not definitions, because each cat will have different mutations, different spots. In this way, they are all human, defined as human with different attributes. Me. I understand. We are all mutants, some more visibly than others, but in the long or short term, we all live mutations. So it is not the mutations that define what I am, but show my qualities in a specific context or time. I am. Once you understand this, we can see where the mutations are coming from. Me. What is its origin? I am. The small chemical reactions produced in DNA by external factors, such as ultraviolet light emitted from the sun. Me. How? Does light determine our changes? I am. That's right. In the first instance, when cells were single organisms without large structures, their protective films only contained the genetic material, but did not protect it from all the sun's rays. Photons pass through these layers, and especially ultraviolet rays have the ability to be directed directly at the molecular level. This affects the sensitive formations of chemical compounds, adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine, deforming or disarming them, causing them to connect in a different way. Me. How to confuse the cables and connect them with others that were not, generating a short circuit. I am. Exactly. At the nuclear level, these modifications produced by the photons of light rearrange certain data of the cellular interior, producing a chain reaction that will end up being a mutation. If one of these data said that the cell is round, when the genetic code is modified, it can become oval, since the gene determines the ordering of each cell in relation to the others, as algebraic codes determine colors and shapes in computer programming. Me. The binary data of 1 and 0, ordered in a specific way, controls that a color is red or blue on the screen. So if I change the order of them, I can modify it to green or orange, or much more disparate colors, only with the rearrangement of the same numbers in different positions. I am. And sometimes only a minimal change is enough, just a number in a long sequence, to deform everything and completely change the sequence and therefore reality. Me. It's incredible. That is, everything has to be given very perfectly, so that everything always remains the same, and there are no malformations every day. I am. The wonderful genetic machinery works by resonance and knows how to arrange the structures perfectly as exact copies. The irradiation of the sun and its effect on matter is what produces effects in the nucleus that modify these codes, producing errors in the sequence. But those mistakes can make a difference, being the key to evolution. Me. In what way? I am. Well, a cell that is exposed too much to sunlight and is affected by its ultraviolet rays, which produce a mutation in the nucleus, can develop a strange attribute such as changing color and processing melanin, retaining it in its walls instead of eliminating it. Suddenly, this cell has more possibilities of subsistence in environments with a lot of light, while the others die. This mutation allows it to be the only one capable of reproducing in hostile environments, so all subsequent cells will have the same layer, the same error that became its quality. Me. Oh, right. Suddenly what was a genetic error went on to form a different quality that allows adaptability. I am. These processes take thousands or millions of years, trial and error, but as you have seen, they work because it is this mechanism that allowed the appearance of each species on Earth. Me. We are all mutants. Every plant, every animal, every human. I am. And every virus and bacteria especially. A complex being such as a mammal requires thousands of years to have results in a mutation, since each of its cells has to integrate this change. However, unicellular organisms do not require more than a year to achieve it. Me. That's why every year many get vaccinated for the flu, because every 6 months it evolves, mutates. I am. Viruses and bacteria are excellent in the art of adaptation to the environment and know how to take advantage of resources to modify themselves. Within a living organism, changes are constant, depending on what is consumed, temperatures, attacks by the immune system, while for a human the mutation can occur in a lifetime, because the cells must incorporate the cultural, emotional, contextual information that this being is living, recognizing itself. A virus recognizes the slightest of environmental changes, and they do something mind-boggling. They inoculate themselves. They can absorb other dead viruses into the environment, incorporating genes that have lived through previous experience. And due to their high level of reproduction, they can generate thousands of themselves in a few hours. Me. That's what you mean by new strains. I am. No one can stop a virus, and there is no vaccine to stop it. But there are vaccines to lessen its effects. Vaccines that eventually have to be remade for new mutations. The same goes for bacteria. Physical bodies are accustomed to this constant attack, and therefore the immune system has all the tools to counteract these mutations as long as it does not have other issues to deal with at the same time, which lowers immunity. The body has mutated to adapt to this over millions of years. A virus does in 6 months what humans do in 300,000 years, generate new strains, what we humanly call ethnicities, or what we colloquially refer to as races. Me, the white race, the black race, the yellow race, the red race. They are all mutations of the same human species. I am. All humans with different attributes adapted to each context. The mutations produced by mitosis are errors in the copy of information that we make every day, something that is seen in old age, in the mutation that the body lives when enlarging and aging. And this type of mutation is the oldest of all. The mutations produced by meiosis were originated in data copying errors during the emergence of the sexual reproductive system. These copying errors give different qualities to new individuals, qualities that can be qualified in various ways. Me. In what way? I am. First of all, there are 3 main bases for defining mutations: gene, chromosomal, and genomic. Gene mutation is one that affects only one gene in the DNA strand. Chromosomal is the one that affects an entire chromosome, producing visible and concrete changes, and genomics is one that affects the entire genetic sequence of the complete DNA, modifying the general and global appearance of a being. Me. So the first can be, for example, something that causes freckles. The second modifies the color of all the skin, and the third marks the formation of my ethnicity. I am. We could put it that way in broad strokes, yes. From these mutations, we find many more diversified. There is the somatic mutation, which involves the reproduction of a genetic group with the zygote, which generates a multiplication of this gene, giving 2 different groups of information within the body in formation. And the germinal mutation, which occurs within the reproductive cells of the parents, which from the beginning will determine the genetic evolution of the gamete without 2 parallel lines of formation, but a joint one. Also, the morphological, which is denoted in the structural and physical change of a being. The lethal and deleterious, those that affect the mechanism of life, leading it to early death or preventing its functionality, even if they do not lead to its death. Also, the conditional mutations, these are keys to adaptability, which show mutations that allow us to live in different spaces, or that prevent us from living in these spaces, leading us to extinction. Biochemical mutations are produced by the things we ingest. Others lead us to lose certain functions, while others lead us to gain new ones. Me. So there are mutations that lead to evolution, and others that generate diseases. I am. Exactly. Ultraviolet light, the weather, errors in copies due to mitosis or meiosis, the food we eat, and even the culture in which we live and the emotions we experience. Even the thoughts we possess are factors of energy and vibration that can reconfigure the order of genes. Like playing Jenga or Scrabble, mutations give us new structures that strengthen us or make us fail. Those who have known how to use their genetic differences have survived. Me. For example, I am. Bears are black in origin because they usually hunt at night. This color was useful for them to hide from predators or not be seen by their prey. However, during the ice ages, ice covered the bears' forests, and the black bears could no longer hide in the snow, so their prey saw them coming from far away. They died and they had to leave. But not so with albinos, bears that have been born with genetic skin problems, causing the absence of melanin to leave them white. This was very negative for a bear in a forest. It was very positive for a white bear in the snow. Therefore, they were the only ones able to survive. Thus, they began to reproduce, giving birth only to white bears. Me, the polar bear. I am a genetic error. It was the origin of a beautiful species from the boreal zone. All the species you know today were mutations, errors of genomes, useful to the environments, but few remember those that could not adapt and perished, becoming extinct, which were many and still are. Me. Can we prevent the extinction of species? I am. No, for several reasons. One of them is because in this world, there is no place for everyone, and each species plays a fundamental role. The reason we exist is because many others have disappeared, and if they hadn't, many other species we know today would not have thrived. What we can do as humanity is to try that, being a conscious species, we are not the ones who drive that extinction by greed or unconsciousness. Me. Sure, I am. We cannot control the natural course of events, but we can be responsible for our own actions. Me. And what about diseases? I am. These are the mutations that test us in evolution. They are the errors of genomes, of genes that disrupt their real function to perform irregular functions, like cancer, a cell mutation in which the cells themselves, instead of reproducing, consume each other. Me. Can these mutations be prevented? I am. Yes, but not to eradicate it, because a new one will always appear. What you call disease are actually tests of nature that control stability and adaptability. It may seem cruel, but there is no one controlling this. It is natural. It is a process of natural selection. Diseases control populations. Me. I once saw a documentary about ants in the Amazon, which talked about fungi that penetrate the nervous system of ants, turning them into zombies until they die and devour them inside, being born from their head. This fungus exists in various forms, and each specializes in a species of insect. The interesting thing is that you could say that this looks terrible, and you have to eradicate it. But then they show you the image above, and you can see that if it were not for these fungi, the ant colonies would have wiped out vast areas of territory, leaving many other insects without food. So the fungus functions as a kind of population regulator, something that we do not take notion of because we are moralists. I am. That's right. Precisely. Everything has an order. A society that has greater control of its population, greater control of its diet, that lives with less stress and less exposure to chemicals, is a society less prone to disease. However, we will never be exempt from genetic errors because they are what help us evolve, as bad as it may seem in some cases. Me. But what about what they're doing now and trying to normalize with assisted mutations, where parents can choose the color of their baby's eyes or skin, hair, height, health? Isn't this immoral? I am. Immoral in what sense? Me. Shouldn't this be left to the mercy of nature? I am. Why do you dress? Me. How? I am. Why do you wear clothes? If it's hot and you can go naked, at the mercy of nature. Me. I don't know. I am. By culture. Morality is culture. It is religiosity. What makes it seem immoral to choose the color of your baby's eyes, but not choose their beliefs and way of thinking? What do you see as immoral about preventing genetic diseases? And why is it moral to fight for the health of these people when they are already sick? Me. I don't know. You just kicked me in the head with this, because, that is, I consider myself a naturalist. I consider that nature does things as they should be, and that the human is not ready to do this kind of thing, to mess with the genetics of a new being just for personal pleasure. I am. When you choose someone blonde to breed, you're making a genetic choice. When you're looking for someone similar to you or someone you like to have a baby, you're doing genetic selection. When you feed your baby a vegetarian or omnivorous diet, you make a genetic choice. When you decide to go live in a hot or cold place, you make a genetic choice. When you do artificial insemination, it's a genetic choice. When you cut your child's hair in one way or another, it's a genetic choice. When you choose one education over another, it's a genetic choice. Me. I understand. I am. You're moralizing something you can't morally fight against. The human makes every day choices that modify his genome and decides for others over his own. Natural selection is constructed from the subconscious, while geneticist is chosen by the conscious. And like everything, it will be trial and error until humans see what the conflicts generated by these genetic decisions have been. Me. So like everything, this will be more of a trial and error process. I am. Accepting abortion and denying the genetic modification of a gamete is contradictory. Life is an evolutionary constant in which genes will inevitably be modified, and there will come a time when even adults themselves can choose what to modify. Do you know what's the biggest problem here? Me. Which one? I am. Believing yourself to be conscious. There is nothing worse than confusing conscience with morality. Consciousness interprets and understands changes and tries to take all innovation as a tool for its transcendence. Morality has a preconceived idea of how things should be, and it clings to it. If it had been about morality, polar bears would never have existed. Me. I must accept then that mutation, for better or for worse, is part of our eternal nature. I am. And knowing this, you must recognize what your mutations have been, and what they have been useful to you, and which ones you would modify if you had the possibility. Remember, mutations don't define who you are. They give you attributes to be. Me. I am a product of all circumstances. I am. Cause and effect. So you have no choice but to become the cause of all effect by recognizing yourself as the effect of all cause. You are, and that will not change. But your ways will constantly change, and you cannot help it. Therefore, recognize it. Me. I am a mutant.
My heart's